Welcome, everyone. I'm Renee Childs. I am the founder and executive director of Youth Be Heard, which is an online gallery for writing and art. And our mission is to elevate youth voice so that every teen and college student believes in their own value and potential. I studied social work at Washington University in St. Louis and focused heavily on positive youth development and the social development of women and girls, which is what led me to media literacy. I discovered it as I was looking at interventions that would be helpful. So I formed the organization Youth Be Heard in 2018, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the session. See. All right, did my screen change? I can't see anybody. So. Okay, good. Yes. Awesome. Verbal affirmations are totally welcome right now. So for our agenda, I'm speaking and looking at myself, so, excellent. The agenda, I put an exclamation point there to make it sound more exciting. We're going to talk about media and technology. Is it good or bad? We're going to talk a little bit about the bad, teen mental health, what we can do about the increase in mental health occurrences among teens, how teens can help themselves, how teachers and organizations can help teens, and then using media for good. Right, is media good or bad? I love this little, maybe all of you have seen this before. We have met the enemy and he is us. So media is a tool that we have to work hard and be intentional to use well. And it can be used for good or bad. And it's tricky because it's intermixed with so many messages come to us every day. And the good is mixed with the bad. And we take it all in. And sometimes we don't recognize what's really impacting us and influencing us. So we're going to talk a little about the bad. If you all are able to share a little bit how you recognize that media and technology can be bad for teens. What are the common causes of stress among teens due to media and technology?
I guess I'll start. This is Justin Washington. One thing that I noticed that's stressful or bad for teens when it comes to technology is really social media or, Instagram, their feeling of, the lack of self-worth or the fact that they have to live up to, societal norms that they, at that age they're not ready for, or body image issues. So that's definitely one thing that I've noticed with teens.
Yes. Kristen says fear or missing out in comparison.
Yes, that comparison piece is huge. Renee, I just remember when I was teaching high school and, they would always, think they needed to live the life of the people that they saw on the screens. And, I would even have young boys telling me stuff like, how come I can't go to a party where it's like only 2 guys and 10 women there, like I see on the videos. I'm like, no women are going for that.
Yeah. Somebody says being inundated with messages and not being able to sift through them responsibly. Yeah, definitely. So many are experiencing bullying issues in social media.
Renee, can I talk? Is it okay if I
can
add something?
Yeah, this is a discussion. Join us.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm Bruno from Brazil, and one of the things that I get really worried about the access to technology for teens is access to content that they are not mature enough to digest and to really understand. So that's why maybe the media literacy is so important, because in Brazil we are invaded with fake news all the time. It's like it's a cancer. It's like people believe WhatsApp groups better than TV and media and science. So sometimes they come with things and ideas that they got from social media that they really believe it, like it's in social media, so it's true. So I think it's one of the things that's really bad for them. is not being mature enough to understand and to digest this news and to really get to the point and to compare and contrast with other media. That's one of the things that I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Someone else says, same here in the Philippines. So much misinformation and disinformation. Are we now the capital of fake news? Yeah. And I think something that goes along with that I've been really passionate about is how the pornography is considered, well, and the internet is the #1 sexual health educator for youth. That's what they report going to first. And so when a lot of companies are trying to use pornography to make money, sell ads, it can be very addicting, and there's not much that's true about real life in pornography. So it can really mess with relationships and body image as well. So yeah, a lot of what you've said, just a couple that teens have talked about, just this sheer quantity of messages, through all their different apps. I just had a talk with one of our youth advisory board members, and she said she gets between 200 and 400 messages a day. So it's really hard to turn off. It's kind of like a party that's happening next door, in the room next door to you, and you have to turn it off to do your homework. Seeing others on a Snapchat story, or seeing the guy or gal you like with their new significant other. Getting snarky text messages, arguing with family about screen time, feeling like they have a friend who has a mental health struggle and they want to be there for their friend, but they need to go to bed and they feel bad saying they need to go to bed. So these are all things that I think are, it makes sense that it would be stressful to them to juggle all the changes that are happening to them in normal life as a teenager, and have to deal with kind of the inundation of messages they get through texts and social media. So thanks for sharing, everyone. So media and mental health, we're going to talk a little bit about this issue. There have been a ton of studies on if social media actually has causation or correlation with the rise in mental health issues among teens. And most of them are inconclusive about if there's causation, but there is a ton of correlation. So between one of the best studies I found, it looked at 10 years data between 2005 and 2015 and showed that depressive episodes in teens increased by 37%. And, you can see how in 2005, almost no one was taking a cell phone with them to school, but by 2015, almost everyone had a phone. So never before in the history of the world that I know, before social media, there's never been this quantification of social value like there is today through likes. So there's an actual number that teens can look at, that we can look at. And, someone can be walking down the hall and say, oh, there's that person that has 5,000 Instagram followers. And suddenly there's this instant respect. And it's just, when I was in high school, we didn't really know. We didn't have this number to compare ourselves with others. And social media likes on their own can trigger this dopamine hit. It's like the reward cycle. The more you get it, the more you want it. So the same brain circuits that are activated by eating chocolate, money, are also switched on when we see likes, a large number of likes. So there's this real psychological high. And so that's why we keep going back to it. It creates this reward cycle in the brain. So the question is, who are we allowing to determine our self-worth? And who are we giving that power to? And this is something I really think is important for us to help teens ask themselves. Are they giving it to random strangers on the internet? Is that who we're giving the power to determine our value? So we have to be really intentional about our motivation. So I'm going to go through a few more reasons that social media is difficult on our mental health. So have any of you seen these dangerous selfies on Instagram?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So there is data that shows that people now aren't enjoying their actual experiences in life as much as they're enjoying the audience's responses to them posting about those experiences. So there's this social validation that comes from where people go, what they look like, who they're with, what they're accomplishing. And so often we don't realize what the product is here. And so I'm going to get into a little bit more of media literacy, which I think most of you might be very familiar with. But, what is the product here? The product is these individuals. They're creating this product for people to find interesting, to come back to Instagram, to spend more time on Instagram, which then they see more ads, and companies and Instagram both make money while these individuals are risking their lives. They may be influencers themselves and be making money on this, but it can be really powerful. There's a lot of power to be liked. So we're going to move on to the body image issues. So can anyone step up and read this for us?
I will. Instagram is like a masterclass in objectification. Endless posts and comments each day teach girls they exist for others' viewing pleasure. Help your daughter experience life as more than a body as long as she can without Instagram, because logging on marks the day when that ends for too many girls. Lexi Kite, PhD.
Thank you. Yeah, girls learn so quickly that body shots get the most views and likes. And they see now it's not just an ad in a magazine of a woman in a perfect looking woman in a bikini, but it's their friends. And that just makes it so much closer to home when you don't feel like your body adds up to that body. And it reduces, it's an image, a 2D image that people rate. They like it or they don't. And it can be so harmful to see ourselves reduced to a 2D image, our value reduced to something flat that doesn't include our personality or any other character traits that we have. So I just want to pause for a minute and ask if any of you have had experiences with this, if you've considered this, if any teens you've worked with have struggled with this.
I can start, and I work at the college level as an academic support person, and I really see it with the freshman girls who are later teens. When they come in, especially during the summer for like bridge programs, and they're just so worried about making an impression on the boys, and they come with all their stuff that's super dressed up, or dressing the way like you said, Renee, like they see on on the internet, and it's just competing with each other. I've even had some students tell me they don't like wearing masks because for COVID, because people can't see them and they can't be seen or noticed. So I'm kind of at the far end of it, with the freshmen. But I can imagine it's even probably more severe at the middle and high school age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, if anybody else has any thoughts, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'll keep rolling.
So, I can add something. I had experience with teenage girls, and they were super worried about their social media and how they were presented there. Sometimes they had two personalities. Like one was in front of us with all the group, and on Instagram, for example, they were always happy and always having great experiences and worried about how they look all the time. I get worried about that because cosmetic surgery is increasing a lot in Brazil, and teenagers are doing that. It's really I get really worried because I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I'm really afraid that she gets into that. I don't know. She has that feeling when she gets when she will be a teenager. So
Yeah.
it's something to worry about.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Definitely. It is concerning. I have 2 kids myself, and it's something I work really hard to model in our home. But, it's hard to compete with the thousands of messages that come through. So, yeah, we all should be worried about it, I think. All right, we'll move on. So the next thing that causes some mental health issues, especially in girls, is that girls are at greater risk of severe depression, suicidal thoughts, and suicide attempts the more their relationships deviate from what they imagined. So social media exposure to images of perfection are related to an increase in relationship expectations and self-blame when those expectations are not met. So girls might be more likely to stay in an unhealthy relationship, trying to make it look like the relationships they see online that are so perfect, where everyone's so happy, and they tend to blame themselves when they don't go the way that they see in the pictures. And further, I will say that we don't tend to know the full story. We don't know what someone's life is really like. So this couple that I have up here on the screen is the woman is named Mary, and she, when I first saw her Instagram account, I was just mad because life looked so perfect. She looked so perfect. And, she's getting sponsored by all kinds of companies to redo her house. And I'm like, that would be nice. But I read a little bit more about her story, and I was surprised to see how difficult her life actually has been. And knowing more about what she's been through, I realized that I'd much rather have my life than her life, because what she's been through is really, really tough. And so knowing someone's story, knowing more than just the image, can make a real difference. And that goes for all kinds of news stories. Knowing the other side is so important. Understanding that there's nuance, and how we can't judge ourselves by just a picture. So we're going to go to media literacy, what we can do about it, having some power over the media. And this might be complete review for most of you, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, just in case. So the media literacy components, this is a way for us to really be critical of media and understand what's behind it. So the key components are to ask these questions. Who created this piece of media? Who created it? What techniques are used? How would someone different than me understand this message? What values are represented or left out? Who gains power or profit? And why is this media message being sent? So we're going to look at a couple of messages and analyze them together. So let's have a little exercise. And this is, as I said, one of my focuses in my education was social development of women and girls. So that's kind of a theme in media literacy that I'm really passionate about. So that's going to come through a little bit in this presentation. So if you all can, join and you can unmute and share a little bit about these ads. We're going to answer these questions. Who created this? And obviously, you know who created it, but we've got American Apparel here, and we've got this this company here. What techniques are used?
It looks like sexually suggestive advertising.
Yeah. And these are ads that are, just out for anyone to see these. This is for common.
They only They only represent body parts.
Yes.
Not for human.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what objectification really is. It's focusing only on the body, only on certain parts, really accentuates that. Yeah. So how would someone different than you, other than me, understand this message? So it looks like, the message that's being sent, I'll just say it looks like it's being sent not to appeal to me necessarily, but who's it to appeal to, and how would someone different than yourself understand this message?
Yeah, I really worry about how young women would take this. Is that it's okay just to to overly focus on their chest or their legs, and if they don't have nice chests or legs, then something's wrong with them. You need to figure out how to get it, or you have less value. You're not as important as a person.
Yeah.
Can I say something on that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Eden from Malaysia. So that question kind of like attract me the most. Like, how would someone different than me understand this? Because from what I understand, this is meant for business purposes, marketing strategies. So this is what I perceived the moment I saw this photo. It's like no matter how good other things behind those products are supposed to be the most attractive one when it's presented in public. I mean, like nudity is something that will attract most people, but in this sense, it seems like the bags will appear most attractive as compared to whatever other attractive things behind. But that's what I am getting from this visual, which I am not so sure if others how they see it. So that's what I see.
Yeah, I think like James said, I worry about young girls, young boys seeing this. I worry about, how teenage girls might see this. So everyone from the age of a young child to, it's really not great for anyone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, on that part, I mean, like maybe there's another view, like another irony message might be like, if you are not as good as how the models are shown, even though it just shows like certain parts of the body, it may not be meant for you. I mean, which is of course negative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so some of these questions that go along with media literacy, what values are represented or left out? That can be a little bit tricky for some of these. But what would you say? What are the values being represented here?
Excels.
Yeah. Who gains profit or power from this ad? These ads.
It seems like it's really, promoting the objectification of women. So the company or men in control, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say both of those.
And then for me, I'm sorry, just briefly,
No,
I'm
no,
just
go
thinking
ahead.
like the American Apparel one is just like that's just kind of a lot for me. And I'm just thinking, are young boys looking at their girlfriends or girls in their schools or their classes and saying, well, why aren't you doing this? If it's good
Exactly.
enough for this commercial, or they're out on a date or something, it's like, time for me to grab your ankle, whatever the case may be. Very,
Right.
very concerning.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality is we have given most teenagers a private screen to Google anything they want. So it's really easy to access images that are way more extreme than this. And like you said, there's concern about the expectations for what's normal in a relationship. Um, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
That's what I think is interesting about the American Apparel one is if you look at its Virgin, okay, a V, both from the male point of view, it's upside down, but from the female point of view, it would be right side up V, which is a double standard if I'm looking at that visual, because certainly it's not, to me, portraying virginity, it's portraying the opposite. So I don't know.
Yeah, that message is subtle, isn't it? But I think you're right that that's coming through.
That's deep, Susan.
Yeah, so that's a value that of, society that's kind of being is this idea that women are supposed to be perfect and sexual and essentially not have personality, but are kind of there for their beauty, and that that there aren't the same standards for men and women. Yeah. So who gains power from this message? We talked about the company essentially gains power from this, and they're kind of doing it on the backs of someone else, making someone else pay for this in a way, so that they can gain power. So women are degraded in their messages, and this company gains power from that. So why is this message being sent? Whoops. Sorry.
Maybe one thing that I can say is if you want to, you're telling young girls, if you want a guy who looks like this is what you need to do, lay on your back, dress fashionably, and then maybe you can get a guy who looks like that because he looks pretty polished, well put together. So it's sort of saying this is what you need to do to attract that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that why is this message being sent? Kind of it plays into these cultural values, these cultural norms, and ultimately it's to put money in some people's pockets.
Right. And what is it saying about America, Renee? I mean, it's
Right.
red, white, and blue, American
Yeah.
Apparel.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I just caught that. And so, from people like, from the Philippines or Malaysia and other parts of the world, this is what they think America's all about,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's not.
I remember I spent several months in Central America, and in Nicaragua, I had there's a family I was staying with, and one of the uncles came and he said, America is so violent, right? Everybody is always shooting each other, and everybody has, fancy cars. And he was just basing that off of the movies that he's seen. He thought, that everyone was just constantly shooting each other, which, there is a problem with that. But the degree that it's shown in the movies is what he thought was reality. Because so much of international media even comes from, and entertainment comes from Hollywood.
Renee, to second what you just said, my in-laws, family from Portugal, and they said the same thing. When you go and talk to other, family members or different things like that, what they see portrayed on television is what they think American culture is truly like.
Oh.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, like, I've never been to America before, so I'm not. I mean, even now, I've never been there. So, but I do have friends who went there to pursue their studies, and when they came back, they said like what we see on the movie is the total opposite. I mean, this is the thing about Asian. Asian, we have all these cultures to the extent that we believe like, oh, we are the most polite, we are the most well mannered, but most of my friends who went abroad, they told me that actually they are way well behaved than us. I mean, what we see on the movie is the total opposite. I mean, it might be just something that they call like American dreams kind of stuff, but it doesn't really happen in real life. Which, yeah, I think that's something that not many people know, especially from the point of view of an Asian like myself. So, yeah, that's the thing that I think most of the time is leading when it comes to like we from the other side of the world try to learn and know about the other parts of the world without knowing it from the true source itself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You have direct experience on what it's like to receive media from the United States. Yeah, in the chat here, advertisements in the Philippines have improved over time. It became more child-friendly, inspiring, family-oriented, and inclusive to different cultures. This is just my observation. That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and we just have to continue being active and pushing back against these companies. I send I send emails as much as I have time for. Anytime I see an advertisement like this, I try to not just sit back and do nothing. I find a contact and I write a whole email about the harm that objectification can cause and do something about it. So I would encourage you all to do that as well. Be active about those messages. Contact, and I worked in business for 10 years and I worked in marketing. And anytime we received a negative email, a negative comment, we multiplied that by 10, knowing that people don't tend to communicate with you. So if there's one negative comment or one concern, there's probably 10 more people who felt that way who didn't take the time to write that email. So it definitely has power. We as consumers, as the customer, have a lot of power.
I'm curious, Renee, how old is do you know what are these current ads or?
These are from a few years ago. So I saw is this Susan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the Me Too movement. Yeah. That's a good question. So these are from a few years ago. I do continue to see some ads, especially on Instagram. There's one I wrote to the company for the other day, just the way that they had the body positioning of a young woman in a swimsuit, and they were advertising kayaks, but the way that the camera angle was, the focus of that that image was pretty bad. But I think that the Me Too movement did have a huge impact. So I don't know, maybe what have you seen?
Well, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and Les Wexner's company, the whole, gosh, now I'm put on the spot because, but all the things with the models strutting down with lingerie. I mean, that I think the Me Too movement basically put that Victoria's Secret on alert that this was just not going to be accepted anymore. So I do think that at least from Victoria's Secret perspective, it did have a huge impact.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I remember seeing billboards in St. Louis that I was just horrified by, that were selling boots. And, that was probably 2016. And I called the company, and I don't know if it was me or not, but they did change, that company changed the way these boots on those billboards.
It was you, Renee. Take the credit. Take the credit.
Well, it's funny because the guy who answered the phone, he's like, well, all the college girls dress this way. You should come to a country music concert. You'll see this is how they like to dress. But I'm like, well, it's the angle of this, it's the angle of the camera shot that's really concerning to me. So yeah, Bruno just said we have a lot of beer commercials that associate women in bikinis and men drinking beer, and I don't see any more of it on TV. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm going to move on to another example here. This one's a little bit less obvious if we're going to practice media literacy skills. So this is an ad I got. It's an email I received from Facebook. I used to have a blog called Mother of Drool. It's now called Raising the Humans, because I don't have babies anymore. But I received this ad in my email. So what do you notice? Who created this? What techniques are used? Well, I will just say they're using, oh, was someone going to speak here? Okay. They're using a technique, and that I have, they didn't tell me this, but it's social norms theory. So other people are doing this. We want to be normal. We want to be like other people. And so they're using this social norms theory to say, if you were more like other people who are boosting these posts, you would get, more popularity, up to 1,000 people a day. And they're trying to get me to create content to put on their platform to draw in more people so that they can sell all those people advertisements. So they're like, hey, you're not producing enough, you free labor, so do some more, because we want you to keep pulling in your friends to Facebook.
So is that like when children would say, well, I don't know why I can't stay out late because Johnny's mom lets her stay out late?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we don't tend to, social norms theory. It's interesting because it's like, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's like, I am who you say that I am. And social media is tricky because who are we giving the power to tell us who we are? It tends to be people who don't even really know us. But we're very social creatures. One of our biggest needs is to connect with others. And social media capitalizes on that. It's a good thing that we want to connect with others. That's part of our, joy and survival. But it's been capitalized on, so we have to really be aware of how that's being used for our benefit and for our detriment. So we're going to move on to another one we kind of talked about this a little bit about the beauty industry already, but just how big of a market it is, capitalizing on, making us feel deficient in the way that we look so that more things can be sold to us. So now on top of trying to keep up with the Kardashians and the magazines, even our friends are using their platforms to sell stuff through multi-level marketing companies or through, becoming an influencer. I have friends who are telling me how amazing their shakes are and how this powder has changed their lives and how this particular mascara has made their eyelashes so much longer and they look so beautiful and it makes them feel so good. And coming from our friends, we have trust there already and we believe it more. So it's even a little more challenging when it comes through social media. I liked what Alicia Keys said. She said, I wrote a list of all the things I was sick of. And one was how much women are brainwashed, the feeling like we have to be skinny or sexy or desirable to be or perfect. One of the things I was tired of was the constant judgment of women. All of it is so frustrating and so freaking impossible. So this is, something that plays into the mental health, especially of girls, when we can't be perfect, and there's this expectation that we have of ourselves to be perfect. And there's an estimate today that we get about 6,000 ads per day. So it's just a lot to kind of keep ourselves strong in the midst of that quantity of messages. Sorry, someone had a comment?
No, I was just going to piggyback on what you were saying, and I was thinking about what Bruno was saying earlier about his country in Brazil, because my son, whom y'all met earlier, he attended University of Miami, so we would go down to visit him in Miami, and everywhere I saw these ads, for all kinds of cosmetic surgeries and things like that. Justin, I know I'm getting in your area a little bit here, Dr. Washington, but Brazilian butts. I had to ask my wife, what is a Brazilian butt? Brazilian butt list, and it was like ads, like it's businesses and stuff, ads everywhere. I mean, so, I don't know how awesome the Brazilian butts are, Bruno, but, apparently people want them in Miami and I guess in the United States.
I think that in Miami, the Brazilian community is really big. So I think they have they look for Brazilian women as, I don't know, as an icon of having a butt that is big or something like that. And really, in Brazil, we have this culture of admiring women with big butts. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just the truth. And maybe there's something related to that. Women want to do some kind of I don't know, silicone implants or something, and people do that in Brazil too. It's like they do silicone implants and cosmetic surgery to have bigger butts. It's something cultural here, yes.
Well, and to go off of that, I actually have a friend whose husband bought her some leggings that would give her a Brazilian butt. She received those for her birthday, and I was like, that is not okay with me. That's not a great gift. She laughed, but it kind of shows how both men and women are affected by this with expectations, a man's expectations for a woman's body, and the pressure that puts on her, and then the ads she sees and the pressure, like, oh, I have to look like that now. It used to be that, the beauty industry is changing and now I have to change myself. So,
One sad thing that I've heard are a lot of young girls, high school, late middle school, 8th grade up, that are planning on their procedures that they're going to have later in life. You know,
Mm.
it's sad to understand. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get breast implants. I'm going to get different things. I'm like, you're like 14. Why are you thinking of that at this age? But it's social media. You know, the Kardashians. When I saw that, I laughed because it's like that's the epitome of beauty, and they're going to figure out how to get there any way they can at such a young age.
Yeah. Yeah. The next technique I wanted to chat about was drama. Drama sells just like sex sells, sensationalization sells, conspiracy theories sell, and as many of you know, it's much faster than truth sells. But anger, it moves us to action. It gets our adrenaline pumping. And it pushes the fear aside, so we may be much more likely to hit share. You know, we see something, we're mad, we want everyone to know, share, you know, or write a comment without reading the article. And that can cause a problem because we are, you know, we're sharing before we fully understand, what's behind this, which is not great for our society. Yeah, and I want, you know, think again about these media literacy techniques. You know, who's profiting from the drama, from people arguing on Twitter, you know, getting on Facebook and seeing people you know duking it out, and you know, you're like, oh, you know, this is as good as TV. But it's those companies that are profiting. Because it's bringing eyeballs back to their platform. So we have to be aware of that and help youth see that as well. It's, you know, it's like a fight in the cafeteria now is happening on Facebook, or, you know, for teens, not so much Facebook, but on the other social media platforms, they are gravitating to.
And the cameras immediately come out, Renee. As soon as there's a push or, you know, whatever, people are like immediately not trying to stop the fight. They want to record it. What's the website called? World Star Hip Hop,
Yes.
you know, something like that. So people are like, World Star, you know, and you know, they're trying to become famous for publishing someone else's fight. And I don't know if this is still the case, but a few years ago, it was like websites that you could pay for memberships to them or buy videos of like people fighting, students fighting and stuff like that. I mean, it's, you know, just like children or young people. I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And it's hard with teens to get them to see behind this, but you know, it's hard to, but if we don't start early, it's hard to kind of, if they already have the behavior of kind of going to their phones, we kind of have to tell them what's behind it, because teenagers don't like to be manipulated or taken advantage of. And so I think when we can tell them who's profiting from this stuff, they might have a little more inclination to rebel against somebody using their content for free, someone else benefiting from their content.
And I told you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bruno.
No problem. Here in Brazil, our president, he has three sons, and all of them are representatives. One of them is all they work as congressmen. And when there is a post like talking some bad things about the president, they orchestrate attacks to the people who produced it. Like they have WhatsApp groups that they orchestrate. Like, I don't know, 1,000 people go and start fighting that person. And once the person gets to notice that, it's like it's impossible to respond to all of the comments, and they are really hateful comments, and it generates a lot of profit to the platform. Yes, of course, but it's a phenomenon that's really ugly here in Brazil.
Wow, yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah,
I was just going to say just briefly, because you know I've had, again, college students or teenagers, you know, on the back end of it. You know, they'll send the little memes and they'll send pictures and stuff of people. And, you know, and I'll tell them, I said, what if that was you who made that? It was some girl that made like a funny face where she's like, you know, something like that. And people use it all the time. I said, what if that was you and that was your face everywhere? You know, and like you said, Renee, you know, it's your face everywhere, but you're not getting paid for it. Other people are
Right.
benefit. They're making T-shirts. They're doing all these things. They're generating hits and making money, but you're not getting anything out of it. And you may not even give them permission for it. Someone could have taken that picture and posted it without your permission, and things like that. Or if you're a woman, going back to the American Apparel thing, that was an ad. But what if someone made something like that from a young girl from, some private encounter or something like that, and then it's gotten out everywhere. We see these memes and we see these joke things sometimes out there, and I have to remind people those are real people. That's a real person. It's not anything that's fake. And at the middle and high school level, you're more likely to see those kind of things. But middle and high school, particularly freshman year in college, a lot of them still act like they're in high school. So it's really not that different. I saw we've got about Tanya just been with about 15 minutes left. Renee, I don't know if you saw
Okay.
the message.
Yeah. Okay. I better buzz through some of these next ones. This other technique is that I wanted to mention is behavioral addiction. Can somebody just read through these for us? This is a technique that we were talking about media literacy and asking the critical questions, and one of the critical questions is, what techniques are they using to draw my attention?
I can.
Thanks. Yeah.
Behavioral addiction consists of 6 ingredients: goals that are just beyond reach, irresistible and unpredictable positive feedback, a sense of incremental progress and improvement, tasks that become slowly more difficult over time, unresolved tensions that demand resolution, and strong social connections.
Yeah. If that rang any bells to any of you for media, go ahead and type that in the chat. 50% of teens admit that they feel addicted to their cell phones. And maybe some of you have heard of Tristan Harris, who's a design ethicist. He said the problem isn't that people lack willpower. It's that there are 1,000 people on the other side of the screen whose job it is to break down the self-regulation you have. So one of the big things that comes to my mind is video games, that completely embody these 6 ingredients of behavioral addiction. So what has behavioral addiction cost us? 5 years, 4 months. This is kind of an average. This is from 2017, this data. It came from a marketing company that helps people market on social media. So of course they have all of this data. And right now the average person spends about 2 hours a day on social media. And that number is even higher for TV. It's 7 years, 8 months watching TV in a lifetime. I'm like, well, if it's documentaries, it's okay. No, but it's interesting to look at how much time cumulatively it takes and ask ourselves, is that where we want the time to go? And, it's not a straight yes or no answer depending on the content, but it's good to have a quantification of it. Okay, let's see if I can get my slides moving here. Okay, so what can youth do about it? Like I talked about a little bit before, media literacy, helping them to have those questions ready. Who made this message? Who's profiting from it? How are these values, what values messages are being sent? And how might someone different from myself see this? Having them ask those questions can help them not be beholden to the media, but kind of have the power over the media. And to recognize how these messages make us feel, kind of identifying, like, am I feeling jealous? Am I feeling lonely, angry? When we can name what's happening in the media, when we can name our feelings, we can tame those things. So that goes for kind of our feelings and media literacy. If we can name it, we can tame it. When we can recognize the problem, we can figure out what we should do about it and how to address it within ourselves. And then work on limiting our time on social media, there are studies that show that 2 hours and more has a correlation to increases in depression. And some of the research I've seen says aim for 30 minutes. You can check in, you can see what's happening, and try to check out, try to limit your time. And then being a creator. We need balanced, diverse, mindful voices to help make up the narratives that are shaping our society. And so, as many of you know, being a creator of something helps you to understand how it's made. So if you build a car, you're going to know how that car works and how to fix it. You're going to know so much more about the nuances of that car. And the same goes for media. Some that have published on Youth Be Heard realize, oh, it's not that hard. I can write something. I can find an image from here. And we have a process of editing and back and forth, but realizing that almost anybody can create media, which maybe means that we shouldn't necessarily believe all the media that we consume. So now we're going to move on to how teachers and organizations can support youth. Let's see here. I'm going to move a little bit quicker. So we can, like I said, we can encourage youth to be creators more than consumers. I love this quote. And so many of the youth I work with, the main reason that they don't publish on Youth Be Heard, they don't create, is because they're afraid. There's a fear of sharing our voices authentically. So let's see here. But helping them recognize the power that they do have. Some of you may remember these are from a couple of years ago, but just the power that right here on the right, the Time magazine, Emma Gonzalez, really having a powerful voice about the gun violence that had happened at her school. And, regardless of your political feelings, it's incredible to think that Emma Gonzalez had 1.2 million Twitter followers, and when Betsy DeVos was coming to her school, her tweets just had an incredible power in regards to the visit that Betsy DeVos had to her school. And it really does go to show how youth voice can make a difference. So more people are holding this. This is the positive side of media. More people hold journalistic power, and we can hold companies and governments accountable in that way. And there's much more power in the social influence that we have. And someone who is even more experienced, knows so much more about all of this than I do, is Henry Jenkins. He has a book that's free on NYU Press. I don't know if I can put this in the chat here, but he really goes into talking about activism and how important it is to have youth voice. I love this image that he had in his book. I lost my eye in a 5-day student protest in 1970. So this is, activism from the 70s. And then today I just sprained my clicking finger joining a Facebook protest group. And he's talking about effortlessly turning activism into slacktivism. So anyway, check out his book. He has a lot of good information on activism and youth. I'm going to jump into another way that teachers and organizations can help youth, and that is through using positive youth development. So positive youth development, it's a whole field of study that discusses the ways we can help youth thrive, and they have kind of these 40 developmental assets that are on, kind of these different age groups that you can look up. But just in summary, positive youth development assertions are that youth are assets to society. And the goal is to develop youth, not fix them. That young people must be involved in the process of their own development. And that all young people need the chance to participate. So positive youth development is informed by prevention research. So rather than trying to, fix a problem after it's already happened, try to give people the resources they need so that those problems don't occur in the first place. So this is based in prevention research. And there is a study that was in the Journal of Youth and Adolescence that really informed the development of Youth Be Heard. And that research, that study, looked at these 40 developmental assets that youth could have, and they found that this unique combination of having these three assets showed the most significant improvement for youth academically, socially, psychologically, and they actually did work to help others, to help the world. So those three assets are cultivating youth's natural sparks of interest. So that means what they, something that's not forced on them, but something that they are naturally inclined to enjoying. Providing positive adult relationships around that interest, and providing a platform for youth to share their voices. So this study, along with the rise in mental health occurrences among youth, the importance of media literacy, is what led me to develop Youth Be Heard in 2018. So I'll give you just a little overview of what Youth Be Heard is in our last couple minutes. It started out with a writing group in East St. Louis, Illinois. And this writing group, it's now called the Strengths-Based Writing Program. We focus on what we're not good at, the negative about ourselves. Like if we take a test and we miss one, we're focused on that one. We don't look at the others we got right. So this group was focusing on what's good about us. And one of the prompts was write out all the compliments you've ever received. And then we made poems about what we wrote. And I was so floored by one of the poems by Kamantiana McShawn that, I didn't want to be the last person to, I see that the breakout session is ending here in 6 seconds.
Yeah, 10:25.